Tonight, many of America's farmers already feeling the pinch are worried about the possibility of more challenges. That's because President Trump is threatening to deport millions of undocumented immigrants, creating uncertainty about the future of the workforce.
It takes a lot of hands to hand harvest fruits and vegetables.
Talk to any farmer and they'll tell you it's difficult work.
This is a 24-hour job, so I need people who are willing to work in shifts at different times of the day.
But it's hard to find those people.
Yeah.
American farms are on the decline. There was a 7% drop in farms from 2017 to 2022, according to the USDA. That's about 142,000 fewer farms in just 5 years. These days, farmers are up against bird flu outbreaks, higher costs for feed and fertilizer, and climate change. But their livelihoods depend on a reliable workforce. And now they're concerned about how President Trump's campaign promise to launch the largest deportation effort in American history will play out. About 2/3 of crop workers are foreign-born. And while many come to the U.S. who are seasonal jobs legally through H-2A visas, the USDA estimates that 42% of crop laborers are undocumented. New Jersey farmer Kurt Alstead says his workers are all legally authorized, but he's watching closely to see what Trump does next. When we talk about the ripple effects of a potential mass deportation, labor is already hard enough to find as is. Could it be even more difficult to find across the board if that does happen?
Well, there's no question in the United States we have a shrinking workforce. Anything that happens from a policy standpoint that reduces people in our workforce is going to make it very difficult for industry, and certainly for agriculture. We would be in big trouble if we lost workforce.
The labor union, United Farm Workers, has already seen an uptick in migrants asking for help.
The threats are scary, but at the same time, farm workers more than anyone understand the reality that without them, this work is not going to get done.
And fewer workers could mean less homegrown produce, according to University of Montana economist Diane Charlton.
But will consumers see higher prices if there are these mass deportations?
Maybe to a certain extent, consumers might not see a really big impact in the grocery stores, but there will be less domestically grown fruits and vegetables.
Does that mean more farms could go belly up?
Definitely.
It's still unclear exactly how Trump's mass deportation plan would affect farm workers. We reached out to the Trump team, which reiterated the president's commitment to deporting migrant criminals.
According to the Department of Agriculture, more than 40% of the country's farm workers are undocumented. In tonight's In Depth, Camila Montoya Galvez traveled to a dairy farm in Wisconsin to report on the tension between cheap labor and the Trump administration's immigration crackdown.
Down this road in Wamandi, Wisconsin, population 500, lies John Rosno's farm. He's a fifth-generation farmer who owns more than 900 acres and more than 600 dairy cows.
It takes one person for every 40, 45 cows.
And who is doing all of this work?
I would say about 90% is done by immigrants.
Immigrants like Kevin, who was born in central Mexico and crossed the U.S. border illegally when he was 18. Now 21, Kevin is among the 11 million undocumented migrants living in the U.S. More than 10,000 of them work on Wisconsin dairy farms.
What kind of work do you do here on the farm? ¿Qué trabajo haces aquí en la granja?
Alimentar y también limpiar los corrales.
You feed the cows and you clean the barns too.
Kevin, who did not provide his last name during our interview, says he often works 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, sometimes starting as early as 3 a.m. But the pay is better than back home.
Does your family depend on your salary here in the U.S.?
My mother and my siblings, of course. But since I have my dad here, he also sends some money. Nationally, more than half the workers in the dairy industry are undocumented. Like Kevin, many leave behind loved ones for wages that are below what American workers get.
Some people would be saying that you could be right now hiring American workers to do this job, and that the only reason you're not doing that is because you can pay immigrants less. How would you respond to that?
If I hired Americans to do the work, I would have to pay probably about $100,000 a year per person, and they would only work 40, 50 hours a week. I would be out of business within 6 months. I couldn't afford it. If the price of milk was, or like a gallon of milk cost $10 in the store, then I could probably do that.
The new administration is already following through on its promise to deport the undocumented.
What would happen to your farm and to your business if they are all sent back to their home country?
If that would happen, I'm out of business, and it wouldn't take long.
Rosno fears the future. Kevin does not. 4 years ago, when he was president, he said, "I am going to deport everyone," but it never happened. Sometimes we would watch the news and we would see that a family was deported, and we were scared to go out and buy groceries. But I have not felt fear since then. A fear he hopes he'll never feel again. Camilo Montoya Galvez, CBS News, Wamandi, Wisconsin.
President Trump's policies in these early days of his second term are creating uncertainty across the country. Cuts he's making in foreign food aid could have a major impact in America's heartland, where much of the food is grown. Nicole Killian reports from Larned, Kansas.
John Dryden's family has farmed in western Kansas for more than a century. He grows wheat, corn, soybeans, and sorghum, or milo.
We may switch to more corn, dry land acres, just knowing there's usually always a market for corn.
So you may grow corn instead of milo?
More corn than milo, yes.
Since USAID's Food for Peace program has been suspended, there is virtually no market for milo, according to Kim Barnes.
This is the milo that you're talking about.
This is the milo crop. They make flour out of it. It goes into pet food, ethanol. You eat it.
He's with the Pawnee County Co-op that purchases grain from farmers, including Dryden. Now, instead of selling it, he's storing it.
When you're sitting here on 1.7 million bushels of milo, you kind of like to see it move on to the next step, especially when we have people in the world that are hungry.
So while this program is paused, what are you doing?
Well, right now I'm turning over every rock I can find.
Until he finds buyers, he's worried the co-op and the community may take a loss.
The person downtown's not going to sell any furniture. The grocery stores are going to be affected. People just aren't going to buy.
But Dryden is still going to farm.
We're throwing punches all the time, basically. Drought, hailstorms, insects. This is just another punch.
How many more punches can you take?
I don't know.
I'm Skyler Henry in Fitzgerald, Georgia, where cuts in Washington to USAID are threatening this rural economy.
What's the cost of one box? One box is about $40.
Mark Moore is the CEO of the nonprofit Manna Nutrition, which makes a peanut paste to feed starving kids in war zones and famines.
If the system stops, to catch back up, it'll cost not just time, but lives, thousands, if not tens of thousands of lives.
What Moore makes is pretty simple. Take peanuts, blend it with milk, sugar, and vitamins. The result might not look like much, but he says it can work miracles. But not while the federal contract he has counted on for years is in limbo.
We're on, and then we're off, and then we're back on again.
He says he received a stop work order on January 29th, then told to resume 8 days later, then had his contracts canceled. And late Sunday, they were reinstated again. And with 130 employees, Manna is one of the top employers in Ben Hill County, 3 hours outside of Atlanta.
My first priority is my people.
Jason Holt is the mayor of Fitzgerald.
Manna is a 2- or 3-fold contributor to our economy. They purchase raw products, they employ people, and they serve a great humanitarian purpose.
What's your hope?
I hope they continue to grow.
For Mayor Holt, keeping the economy healthy here is personal.
I have a graduating senior coming up. He has a path in mind. He would like to come home, and I want Fitzgerald to be here for him to come home too.
And Skyler Henry joins us now from Atlanta, Georgia. Skyler, this isn't just about one product or one company. Give us a sense of some of the ripple effects here.
Yeah, John, this is many farmers in many states. Manna says that it relies, or it can get a supply from as many as 27 states, but they really rely on a handful, and that is milk from Michigan and Texas. They get their sugar from Louisiana and Florida, and then they obviously get their peanuts from right here in Georgia. All of those farmers would have to find alternative places to send their products.
In the trade war, Canada and China fired the latest shots today. The province of Ontario put a 25% surcharge on electricity sales to Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. Ed O'Keefe will have more about that from Ottawa.
But first, China slapped an additional 15% import tax on American farm products, including pork, poultry, beef, and soybeans. And Lana Zach is in the heart of farm country, Mount Vernon, Iowa.
These are all beef cows.
Tim Keegan calls himself a pretty basic Iowa farmer. His family's been working the land in Mount Vernon, a few hours east of Des Moines, for generations. Their livelihood comes from corn, soybeans, and a small herd of 150 cows.
How high are the stakes for you?
It's tough because within agriculture, I mean, we essentially get one chance a year to raise a crop and market that crop and sell that crop.
You don't have like 5 different harvests.
No, it's not like we're a factory where we're constantly putting out widgets every day and we can make a change and the widget's going to come out cheaper or different the next day. So we're forced to be a lot more forward thinking, just the nature of our business.
China is the largest overseas market for many U.S. farm products. Last year, the U.S. exported nearly $13 billion worth of soybeans from farmers like Keegan to China alone, and another $1.5 billion in beef. Now, import tariffs up to 15% from China are hitting cash crops.
I think people within agriculture are hoping that some of this is these tariffs and stuff will be short term from a negotiation standpoint. And if they are long term, they will have some pretty big impacts within the industry.
41 years later, we're still here.
But Mount Vernon's mayor, Thomas Weisler, says even short term tariffs on the town's farmers could send shockwaves through the economy.
We need them to be successful. And on every level, we need a thriving agricultural community. Otherwise, there's a gap in what we provide to our citizens here. It will ripple down through our main street, through our community, and it'll affect local leadership.